The night was heavy with an unshakable darkness, the kind that seems to breathe, thick and alive, wrapping its cold fingers around everything in its path. In the shadows of the mountains, three friends set off on a journey into the heart of a forgotten curse, a whispering forest, an ancient lake, and a presence that had waited, undisturbed, for far too long. What began as a thrill seeking adventure quickly spiraled into a nightmare none of them could ever have prepared for. And in the suffocating grip of the unknown, they would come to realize that some places are never meant to be found. It was one of those nights, the kind where every breath of wind feels like a sigh from something unseen, something lurking just beyond the edge of your vision. The hotel, nestled between towering trees and jagged mountain peaks, felt like a thin veil of safety, a fragile illusion that could be ripped away at any moment. The teachers, exhausted from the day's travels, had made a simple decision: stay the night, fix the bus in the morning, and head on to Kiman. But the night, with its eerie stillness, had different plans for us. Inside the hotel, everything felt too quiet, too still, as if the building itself was holding its breath. The rooms were assigned, the children separated, tucked away into the solitude of their assigned quarters. It felt like a precautionary measure, though none of us could have said why. Arun and his two closest friends, Aman and Riven, shared a room, and for a moment there was an almost tangible excitement in the air. But then, through the thin panes of the window, we saw it, a glint of something just beyond the forest's edge. A lake, silent, unmoving, its surface like a polished mirror, reflecting nothing but the black abyss of the sky above. The memory of our last school trip came flooding back. The two boys who had ventured into the night found a lake much like this one and returned as heroes, their bravery whispered about in the halls for weeks. How could we resist? We wanted that same rush, that same thrill. The plan formed quickly, almost too easily, as if it had been waiting for us all along. As soon as the night guard drifted off, we would slip out into the forest, take our pictures, and return before anyone noticed. Simple, harmless, or so we thought. The moment we left the hotel, the air changed. It was colder than I had expected, a biting chill that seemed to seep into our bones, gnawing at us with each step. The path to the lake seemed straightforward at first, just a short walk through the trees, we told ourselves. But as we pressed on, the distance stretched, the trail winding deeper into the forest, twisting and turning in ways that didn't feel right. The silence grew thicker, more oppressive, the only sound our footsteps crunching against the frost-covered ground. After what felt like an eternity, I glanced at my phone. No signal. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. We were alone out here, truly alone, with no way of knowing how far we had strayed. A sense of unease crept in, worming its way into my mind. We had been walking for too long. The lake should have been closer by now. The cold had become unbearable, seeping through our clothes, our skin, until it felt like it was freezing us from the inside out. My breath hung in the air like a thin mist, but I wasn't sure if it was from the cold or the growing fear gnawing at my insides. That's when we noticed Ryven was gone. I can't explain the moment I realized it. Just a sudden, horrifying awareness that one of us was missing. Aman and I spun around, scanning the shadows, calling his name, but there was no answer. Just the endless, suffocating quiet of the forest pressing in on all sides. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, came the sound of footsteps. Not ours. They were too fast, too frantic, too close. We followed, driven by panic more than reason, our feet pounding against the forest floor as we chased the echoing footsteps deeper into the trees. But the footsteps stopped abruptly, leaving us in a silence so complete it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. And then, the sound of digging. Slow, methodical. The noise scraped against my mind like nails on a chalkboard, setting my teeth on edge. We moved toward it, creeping through the underbrush, hearts racing, dread tightening its grip with each step. Through the twisted branches we saw him, Riven. He stood in a shallow pit, his back to us, unmoving. His hands were caked with dirt, clenched at his sides, like he'd been digging with them, though the ground seemed untouched. We called out to him, but he didn't respond, didn't even flinch. Slowly he turned to face us, and that's when I saw his eyes. They were black. Not just dark or shadowed, but black. Completely void, as if someone had hollowed them out, leaving nothing behind but empty, soulless sockets. A chill ran through me, colder than the night air. Aman, desperate to snap Rivan out of whatever had taken hold of him, reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. But the moment he did, Rivan erupted, screaming. A sound so raw, so unnatural, it felt like it was tearing through my very soul. He shoved Aman back with an impossible strength, sending him sprawling to the ground. Everything was wrong. The air itself seemed to vibrate with a dark, malevolent energy, pressing down on us, suffocating us. Riven collapsed, convulsing violently, his body thrashing on the ground. And then, nothing. Stillness. Aman groaned, slowly rising to his feet, his head hanging low. I rushed to him, relief flooding through me for just a second, until he lifted his face. His eyes, too, had turned black. The same terrifying emptiness stared back at me, and before I could react, he bolted, disappearing into the trees. We followed, driven by some twisted sense of loyalty, or maybe just sheer terror, our flashlights flickering weakly in the dense darkness. The forest opened up, revealing the ruins of a house, ancient and crumbling, half consumed by the earth itself. It was there we found Aman, floating, suspended in the air, unconscious. And standing beneath him was a figure, a woman. Her skin hung in loose folds, her eyes as black as the night that surrounded us. Her presence was suffocating, radiating hatred and malice in waves. Her hair, wild and white, framed a face twisted with fury. A fury that wasn't meant for us, but had found us nonetheless. We ran. We didn't think, we just ran. But she followed, crawling after us with an inhuman speed, her limbs bending and twisting in ways that no living thing should move. The forest blurred around us, the cold biting at our skin, until suddenly we were at the lake again. The lake that had drawn us here, that had seemed so close, so inviting. Now it was a black, swirling nightmare, its waters reaching up, pulling us in. Aman was gone. Riven drowned before my eyes, his body dragged beneath the surface. And I barely made it out. But by morning, it didn't matter. The hotel was the same, but the world had changed. The police found their bodies, wrapped in white sheets, their lives stolen by something none of us could have understood. The locals whispered of a woman, a soul wronged and cast into the lake long ago, her vengeance waiting in the shadows of these woods. If we had known, if we had just stayed inside, but it was too late for what ifs. And now it's too late for them.